Hey YouTube, Moose Cow here, back with another rule video for Kings and Kaisers. And this time I'm going to go over victory points. What are they, how they work, so on and so forth. So victory points are how you win the game. They're what you're playing for. They tie into the round limit of gameplay. And if you're familiar with BBR or Bloodbath, the way that game works is that the Axis have to get 12 or more victory points. And by the end of the game, if they have 12 or more victory points, or it's clear that the Allies are not going to be able to overcome that, then they win. And the Allies just have to deny them those 12 victory points by the end of the game. And if they do that, then the Allies win, right? Well, in this game, in Kings and Kaisers, it takes that idea and it's a little different. Instead of one side vying for points and the other just trying to deny them, both sides are fighting for points. Okay, both sides are fighting for points, and whoever has the most points by the end of the game, or before the end of the game, if one side obviously cannot overcome the victory points of the other, it can be called early. But by the end of the game, that is the determined winner, whichever side has the most victory points. So I'm going to go into the different victory points, just kind of do a little overview, and also explain the idea of dominance within contested territories. So you got your Kings and Kaisers version 1.5 rulebook, and on page, here, got a card as a bookmarker. On page 5, we got an overview of victory points and how they work. There's a total of 38 different victory points that either side may acquire during a game, and at the end of 10 rounds of gameplay, the side with the most victory points acquired wins. I'm just going to read at the top here. There are 3 types of victory points to gain in Kings and Kaisers, with 16 victory objectives, 18 victory cities, and 27 minor cities as goals for either side. There are 4 special victory cities that are worth 2 points each. All cities that one side starts with and all cities that start aligned to the same side do not count towards that side's endgame victory points total. While the Soviet Russian Republic is considered a central power, Soviet victory cities do not contribute to the endgame victory points of the central powers. In the case of a victory point tie, the side with the highest cumulative IPC economy wins, not including the economies of the Soviet Russian Republic, White Russian Movement, Empire of Japan, United States, or China. Players wanting a longer game can play up to 12 rounds, provided that is agreed upon at the start of the game, although 10 is recommended. Okay, now kind of just pointing out all sides that one side starts with and all cities that all cities that one side starts with and all cities that start aligned to that same side do not count towards that side's endgame victory points total. So what that means, just to kind of go over here, Paris does not count toward the Allied powers' victory points, and neither does Ypres. I think that's how you pronounce it. Bucharest also does not count towards the Allies' minor city points or victory points. Sofia, this city here in Bulgaria, this major city here in Bulgaria, does not count towards the Central Powers' victory points, because major cities by themselves are a victory point. So Sofia does not count towards the Central Powers' victory points, but Ypres does, and Ypres does not count towards the Allied side's victory points. Make sense? You don't get victory points for things that you start with or things that start friendly to you, you know? So that's pretty straightforward there. Now, down over here, if you have the second half of the Kings and Kaisers rule deck, the portion that is all the rules references, you'll get these little cards that just list out the different victory objectives, parts 1 and 2, and then you have another card covering all the different victory cities. Now, if you have the official victory point and income tracker, this is another way to keep track of it, and what we do typically is we'll use bingo chips, translucent bingo chips here. Just, oh yeah, they're under here. Got them here. So what we like to do is we use these translucent bingo chips, red and blue. You can get these really, really cheap if you don't have them. Just kind of more than, you'll basically be able to get more than enough off of like Amazon or something if you just Google bingo chips. But you put those on top, If you have good lighting, you know, you can see through them, but you can also see like, okay, very clearly, okay, Central Powers have the Africa point, the Allied powers have the China point. And in cases of like the Empire point, it is, which I'll go over, you know, in detail later, it is possible for both sides to have that point. I will go over that in more detail. But anyway, this is just kind of a nice visual way of how to keep track of it. These are the victory cities that are worth 2 points each. Or these are the victory cities that are worth 2 points each. Then you have the rest of the victory points, the victory objectives, the victory cities, and then the minor cities, which are also over here. So I'll go into how that works, but basically, if you get the more minor cities you end up controlling, then you accumulate more points, and you can build up multiple points that way. Yeah, basically about summarizes how to keep track of it. So I'm just going to go over what all the different victory points are. Also, I'm going to talk about dominance real quick, because at the end of the game, you'll have, you know, with this game, you have contested territories. So how do contested territories count into your final end game victory points? You know, if it's contested, do you just not get the point, or does it just not contribute to the point? Well, originally we had it like that. Had it like that when we were developing it, but then the more we played it out, the more we thought it was unfair if like you had a territory that was contested, but you only had like one guy from one side was there, and then you had like, say you had like 20 other units in the territory on the opposing side, and they can't get the victory point. So we decided to tweak that a little bit. So if you go into the back of the rule book on page 33, under winning the game. So yeah, at the end of the 10 to 12 chosen rounds of gameplay, the side with the most victory points acquired wins. See page 5. There will be instances where the final game round agreed upon will not need to be completed, as there will be occasions where it becomes impossible for one side to surpass the number of points of the other. Okay, I've covered that already. Here we go. In instances where a territory is contested, if one side has 5 or more units and the other side has less than 5 units, the side with 5 or more units has dominance within the territory and is considered to have acquired the contribution to any victory points pertaining to that territory. This does not apply to the Empire point, which is based off of confirmed IPC totals between certain combined powers. And see page 5, I'll get into that. If neither side in a contested territory has 5 or more units, or if both sides have 5 or more units, then no side has dominance within the territory and it doesn't contribute to either side's victory points. In the case of a victory point tie, the side with the highest cumulative IPC economy wins, not including the economies of the Soviet Russian Republic, White Russian Movement, Empire of Japan, United States, or China. Excuse me, I'm just been getting over a cold. Okay, so with that out of the way, so basically what that means is like, say in Belgium, say you had fighting in Belgium, and at the end of the game, Germany had 4 units and the Allies had more than 5 units on their side. So that would mean that the Allies would have dominance in Belgium, and so any victory point pertaining to Belgium, like the Western Front point and the favorable trade point, that Belgium would contribute to both of those. They would consider both of those points. The Allies would be considered to have dominance in the territory, so this would contribute to their points, to their favorable trade and their Western Front points. All right, now with that out of the way, I'm just going to go over all the different victory points. Okay, let's start with part 1. Okay. All right, so the Western Front point, probably the most infamous point, is most control of Belgium, Rhine Province, Alsace, Lorraine, Burgundy, Burgundy, I always say Burgundy, and Picardy. So that means at the end of the game, whoever controls the most of these 6 territories, Lorraine, here, I'll start with Belgium. Belgium, Rhine Province, Alsace, Lorraine, Burgundy, and Picardy. So yeah, whoever has the most control of these 6 territories, 3 of which are French, 1 is Belgium, and 2 are German to start the game with. Okay. I don't have a visual marker just yet for those territories. I do like to, for the Western Front territories, I do like to have a visual marker if I can on my games. Not necessarily required, but I'm hoping to at least at some point, if somebody makes some decent little trenches or something like visual trenches, I'll plop those down in those territories. But that's just my game. Anyway, let's see. Focus. Okay, the next point is favorable trade, which is the most control of these territories here. I'll just go into it here. So all these territories that you see that I've put crates down, these are the favorable trade territories. So at the end of the game, whoever has the highest control of those territories is the gets the favorable trade point. So right off the bat, the Allies start with the favorable trade point because they start off controlling three out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 territories, and the Germans start off controlling just 1. So the territories are Denmark, Hanover, the Netherlands, Belgium, Picardy, Brittany, and Aquitaine. Okay, so by the end of the game, whoever controls the most of those territories or has dominance within most of those the majority of those territories wins the favorable trade point. Now moving on to the next point, that is the focus. It is a Mediterranean point, which is control of at least 3 out of 4 naval bases in sea zones 27 through 32, which if you back up here, let's see. Okay, so there's 4 naval bases in the Mediterranean. There's 1 in Provence, there's 1 in Rome, in Lazio, there's 1 in Dalmatia, and there's 1 in Marmara. There's actually technically 2 in Marmara. One's in the Black Sea. Here, let me move this stuff out of the way a little bit. Marmara is a territory that has 2. There's one in the Black Sea, there's 1 in the Black Sea and there's 1 in the Mediterranean. All right, so by the end of the game, if one side controls 3 or all 4, 3 or more of those naval bases, or has dominance within the naval bases, then they would get the Mediterranean point. So if Central Powers manage to come down here and snag Rome, and they still have Dalmatia, and they still have Marmara, then they would get the Mediterranean point. Likewise, if the Allies were able to hold on to Provence and Lazio and snag Dalmatia by the end of the game, or snag Marmara by the end of the game, then they would get the Mediterranean point. Okay? Next point is focus issues. The Balkans. This is a fun one. All right, Balkans is control of at least 4 out of 5 of the following. All the Balkan nations. So Albania, Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Romania. So if one side controls 4 out of the 5, or all 5, or has dominance within them, etc., they would get the Balkan point. Pretty straightforward. 4 out of 5. Okay. Technically, the Central Powers or Greece, for example, most likely could be ignored all game if they wanted to, but alas. Yeah, theoretically you could ignore one, but it is kind of a good idea to just try to control all of them and stuff. But you just need it one side, most likely the Central Powers, just needs to control 4 out of 5. Okay. Moving onward to the Black Sea point. Focus. All right. The Black Sea point is most territorial control of the following, which I'm just going to get into. It's all the territories around the Black Sea. Okay. So whoever, by the end of the game, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, similar to the Western favorable trade point. There's 7 territories. Whatever side ends up controlling the most territories around the Black Sea. Okay, that side. So basically, you need at least 4 out of 7 in order to have the Black Sea point. way back when we started designing this game, we also had it so they had to have the Black Sea clear of sea units, but that basically, if these Russian units get killed, you know, basically made it impossible, almost impossible for the Allies to come in here and clear the sea zone. So we just changed it to territories around the Black Sea. So theoretically, if Central Powers control 4 out of 5, but there's still, you know, Allied units within here, they can still get, within the Black Sea itself, they can still get the point, the Central Powers. All right, moving onward. This was a very straightforward one. Let's see if I can. The Suez Canal is very simple. It is just having control of Palestine and Egypt. But that is harder than it sounds, because you might just get it contested enough and then lose it, you know. So, but that is a point, is just control or dominance of these two territories here, Palestine and Egypt. Okay. Moving onward, while we're in this region of the world, is the Middle East oil point. Oh, nice, it's in focus this time. This is another 3 out of 4, basically. Control of at least 3 out of 4 of Caucasus, Persia, Mesopotamia, or Arabia. So the territories here, where you see my little oil derricks, these are the territories that contribute to the Middle East oil point: Caucasus, Persia, Mesopotamia, or Arabia. All right. Very straightforward. You need to control 3 out of 4. Doesn't matter if you control 2 and the other 2 are like contested and don't have dominance. If that's the case, then nobody has it. But you need to control or have dominance of 3 out of 4. Okay, or all 4. And then we have, last one on this card, we have the Africa point, which is the control of most mainland African territories that were originally German, French, British, or Ottoman aligned. So this one does take because there's so many territories in Africa, it does take a little bit to count it up if you need to, because you get so many of those bingo chips. If you need a visual reference, I like to just throw bingo chips down so it's easier to count them up and stuff like that. But anyway, so basically the territories that contribute, they're the mainland African territories. So Madagascar does not count. I'm actually missing a French guy over here in the setup. But anyway, so there should be a French guy here. But anyway, I'll add him later. Doesn't really matter for this video. So the original French territories, the original German territories, the original British territories, and the Ottoman aligned territories, which there are 3 of: Dervish State, Darfur, Cyrenaica. Those count towards the Africa point. The Italian territories do not count. The Spanish colonies do not count. The British aligned colony territories down here do not count. I already said the Italian territories don't count. Yeah, basically that. So what does count is German Southwest Africa, Union of South Africa, Rhodesia, German East Africa, British East Africa, Dervish State, Darfur, Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, Egypt, Cyrenaica, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and French West Africa, Gold Coast, Togoland, Nigeria, Cameroon, and French Equatorial Africa. I think I covered everything. So there you go. Moving on to part 2, Pacific colonies. Okay, this one's a little bit of a doozy. So, okay, Pacific colonies, which kind of gets into the definition of what a colony is. But anyway, Allied control of all original colonial territories that were originally German, French, British, Japanese, or U.S. in or adjacent to sea zones 47 to 75, which is the Pacific Ocean, or Central Power control or contest or if Central Powers control or contest at least one of those territories. Okay, so in order for the Allies to have this point, they have to control all of their original territories and all of the German territories in the Pacific. That includes Qingdao, not just the island territories. So Germany has starts off with a bunch of colonies. They have Qingdao, the Marianas, Marshall Islands, Carolina, which got renamed Caroline Islands later. Palau Islands, Bismarck Archipelago, German New Guinea, German Samoa, and yeah, I got them all. So the Allies have to control all of those territories in addition to all of the colonial territories that they start with. So the colonial territories are Korea, Darren, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the Philippines, French Indochina, Malaya, North Borneo, Papua, all of these territories here in Australia. Technically, Southwest Australia doesn't count because it's not adjacent to the Pacific. New Zealand, all of these ones here, Hawaii, Midway, and then even over here, Alaska would count. These are not colonial territories. Central America would count. French Polynesia would count. Pitcairn Islands would count, if I'm saying that correctly. Right. Yeah, Pitcairn. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. So those would all count. The Central Powers just have to control or contest one of those in order by the end of the game, or one of their own in order to get the point. But the Allies need complete dominance in the Pacific. All of that needs to be solidified. Chile does not count because it's not a colonial territory. Okay, just to be clear, since it's German aligned. Mexico also would not count because they're not colonial territories. Okay, all right. I think I've covered that one, but that basically is what Japan is going to be dealing with for the bulk of the game, is dealing with that. US and Britain might help them out a little bit, but that is, the challenge of the Central Powers is how much of a sideshow they can do over here, because the Allies have to address it. If the Allies don't address it, then they're giving the Central Powers a point. Okay, and then moving onward, China. Okay, so after this will mostly just be a battle between the Chinese Civil War going on and stuff. But basically, by the end of the game, which side controls the most original Chinese territories? Very simple and straightforward. Dominance also, applied to it as well. Control the most Chinese territories. Yeah. So basically, all these territories here, that doesn't apply to Tibet, doesn't apply to Mongolia. China can go into those territories if they want. It doesn't. It's strictly just which side controls the highest number of Chinese territories within China. That's all it is. Then we have the focus. I'll go talk over two of them. We have the Russian Revolution point, and then we have the Fate of Russia point. Okay, so basically the Russian Revolution point, the Central Powers acquire it if they trigger the Russian Revolution, ignite the Russian Revolution, and agree to the armistice, and then that kicks off the Russian Civil War. The Allied powers can only get the revolution point if they prevent the revolution from occurring. If the Central Powers deny the armistice, neither side gets the revolution, and they decide to just keep fighting Russia, neither side gets the revolution point. Okay? The Fate of Russia point is then when the Russian Civil War starts, which side of which Russian faction ends up controlling the highest number of original Russian territories. So very simple. Basically is like a 1-2 process with it. Now for the tournament, just to expedite the gameplay and to speed things up, we are not playing with the Russian Civil War. So what we're doing is that the Russian Revolution point is just worth 2 points. Okay, we're going to try that out. We're also going to try out the Western Front being worth 2 points as well for our tournament. Moving onward, we have the Empire point. Focus. All right. We have the Empire point, and then we get into the minor cities points. So the Empire point is very simple. If you're familiar with Bloodbath and BBR, with the Reich point, or the what is it? Used to be called the Rising Sun point. Why am I blanking on it? The Empire point, or the I'm forgetting about the Reich point, or the the Japanese one. I'm blanking on the term. Whatever, doesn't matter. So very similar. The Reich point in BBR is the combination of the combined income of Germany and Italy together if it's 70 or higher. So very similar to that, we have the Empire Point is the Central Powers can get it if Germany and Austria-Hungary have a combined IPC value of 85 or higher, which is what this little red dot is my little reference for. On the tracker itself, you'll notice that 85, the official tracker, you'll notice that 85 is in red and everything else is in blue. So this is my tracker I like to use as a Bulgarian roundel, and I like to use the World War II UK roundel for the Allies. These are my Empire Point trackers. So for the Allies, it's if Britain and France's combined income is 85 or higher. And I like to use this roundel because both nations have red, white, and blue in their flags, in their flag roundels, and then yellow around it for gold. You see? Red, white, and blue, or blue, white, and red. Blue, white, and red. So that was my decision there. And I like to use this one because it's got an iron cross on it, and then the other colors are also in the German, the Austro-Hungarian flag and stuff. And they both flags have white and red as well. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process there. So yeah, that's the Empire Point, and as I've said before, it is possible for both sides to have the Empire Point depending on what they're doing. And then we get into the minor city points, which there's 3 of. Get into the victory cities here. So basically the, here, focus here. Victory cities. All of these victory cities, Belgrade, Bristol, Cologne, Moscow, Omsk, Rome, Sofia, Tokyo, Vladivostok, Washington, D.C., Verdun, Sydney, San Francisco, Petrograd, Munich, Constantinople, Cape Town, and Bombay. It's actually alphabetical this way. I did it another way. But anyway, these are all worth 1 point each. These special victory cities are worth 2 points each, okay? So Berlin, Vienna, London, and Paris are worth 2 points each. For Vienna and Berlin, for the Allied powers, London and Paris for the Central Powers. Okay, now with that out of the way, I'm going to back up to the minor cities. You got minor cities, 3 minor cities, 5 minor cities, and 7 minor cities. So the minor cities, let me back up. Capital cities will have a building. Major cities will have a red dot. Minor cities will have a gray dot, etc. So if one side, for the minor cities, if one side controls 3 or more of those minor cities, not that one that weren't originally aligned to them or they didn't start with. And again, a nice way to keep track of them is using bingo chips, if you want to visually highlight that. That results in a point if they have 3 or more, and then if they get up to 5, they get another point. If they get up to 7, they get another 3rd point, and then it kind of caps out at that instance. This video is a little much longer than I was anticipating, but hey, it is what it is when you're talking about a complex game. So the minor cities, here's the minor city list because we couldn't fit it on the card. It's in the rule book. We have Algiers in Algeria. We have Ankara in northern Anatolia. Baku, which is in Caucasus. Basra, which is right here. We have Bucharest next. And then we have Budapest. I'm just going to go over them. Budapest, Cairo, Chicago, unlikely but possible. Delhi, Hamburg, Hong Kong, Jerusalem, Kiev, Leeds, Madrid. Madrid is the only one that's in a minor neutral power, which is in Spain, and that's kind of a big deal because if you attack Spain, you have to deal with all these other units and stuff. So that's why Madrid gets one. Madrid, Marseille, Mecca, Naples, Ottawa, Peking, Rennes. I'm butchering the pronunciation of it. Shanghai, Singapore, Strasbourg, Venice, Warsaw, and Ypres. Okay, so again, Warsaw, we're familiar with Warsaw, right? That's a minor city. Kiev's a minor city. Ypres, Strasbourg, Marseille, Rennes. Sorry, I have to look up the pronunciation of that. Usually I don't have to talk about that one. If the Central Powers somehow get over here to Canada, then yes, there is a minor city here, and they should be rewarded as such. If somehow, if somehow the Central Powers end up with any of these, it would be, that's an achievement, so they should be rewarded as such, and it would be a big deal. San Francisco is a major city. Washington, D.C. is obviously the capital of the United States, so on and so forth. Cape Town, major city in South Africa. The bulk of a lot of obtainable minor cities are in the Ottoman Empire and Egypt. Egypt has Cairo. Mecca and Jerusalem are minor cities here, along with Basra, so on and so forth. The two in China, like I said, I've spoke about, are Shanghai and Peking. Let's see, Sydney is a major city. Tokyo is a capital. Vladivostok is a major city. Omsk is here in Urals. Moscow and Petrograd both have buildings listed, and Petrograd starts off as the capital. There's a reason for this. Petrograd starts off as the capital, but the capital of Russia can get moved to Moscow. So if the Russian Civil War occurs, it gets moved to Moscow automatically. Otherwise, if Central Powers are contesting Petrograd or they're adjacent to it, then Russia can pay to move their capital. So that's why they have two capital buildings. So Moscow starts off as a major city, Petrograd starts off as a capital, and then it can get switched, and then Petrograd would become would be treated as a major city, no longer a capital city after that. We got Hamburg here as a minor city. We got Cologne here as a major city. Berlin is buried under there, but it is right there. Of course, London. Wales has Bristol, which is a major city. And then you see Leeds up here in Yorkshire, so on and so forth. Venice in Veneto, minor city, so on and so forth. All right, I am hitting 32 minutes with this, but basically I feel like I've covered everything to talk about with the victory cities and victory objectives. Whatever side controls the most victory points or has dominance within them, dominance does not apply to empire point, as I specified earlier. Whatever side gets the most points by the end of a game is the winner. There you go. Stay tuned for the next one. Apologies for the length for this one.